Good morning and welcome to the October 12th Energy Accounting Camtasia presentation. It's early in the morning. From time to time I will drink more coffee. But anyways, as promised, today we will talk about tomorrow's exam in a segment that I call the conceptual exam question if you want it. Alright, so remember, tomorrow's exam will be two questions. One is conceptual. That's what we'll talk about right now. The second is based on the Nichols book and the information sheet. Be sure to check for the posted information sheet on Blackboard by noon today, Wednesday, October 12th. All right. Here's the quick review of the course so far. You could call what we've been doing modules. So in module 1, we looked at 10K information, looked at Pioneer and Dunbury, fairly large companies, both in the Fortune 500. Module 2, we looked at the topic, what do investors think, with ROE and PE ratios. The companies were Occidental and Anadarko, and this module, which would be number 3, is all about disclosure. And our companies that we have been investigating are Forest Oil and Cabot Oil. By comparison to the prior companies, these companies are relatively small, but they were selected because they're similar in many ways, but they are quite different in terms of disclosure strategy. All right, so let's review the highlights from class. All right, it's possible that these two companies have opposing disclosure strategies. In fact, the evidence suggests it's not just possible, they do. All right, so Forest Oil had the very long annual report, 152 pages. It's quite apparent that they think of themselves as a financially managed company. They say a lot of things to that effect. The slide, and again, if you can't read the slides, download them from Blackboard. The slide gives you one example. Let's look at another. We're looking for Forest Oil's 10K. All right, so here's their 10K. You look up here, 152 pages when you download it as a PDF. Cover page calls the 2010 annual report the interval factor, which sounds really important. Anyways, they give you some highlights on page 2 with some little stars, and if you look at the stars, they say these are pro forma reports, which means they deviate from GAAP. All right, but their highlights, they're all good, as we talked about. Anyways, first page is a letter to shareholders. All right, and we're going to highlight some of what is in this annual report excerpts. All right, these will also be on Blackboard. So from that, dear fellow shareholders, right? So we're calling Forest the financially managed company. This is the first page, fellow shareholders. So the managers are big-time shareholders, we would presume. Forest says, through the application of capital discipline, cost control, and most importantly, what we do, which is drill. All right, so they highlight here that these financial management things are important to them. And then later on in the Dear Shareholders letter, they tell you something about what their philosophy is, right? So what Forest believes their competitive advantage is they can drill a hole in the ground to try to get out oil, and there will be different layers at which you can get out hydrocarbons because of the way they're trapped down in the ground. They think they're really good at getting that out, that kind of oil. And then they talk about multiple objectives, and it's kind of confusing, but that's what the other 40 some pages or for to get you clear on what forest does. Anyways, they call this stacking. That's the interval factor, the title of the annual report. And they say this provides us with a portfolio within a portfolio relative to our geographic base. It sounds like someone wants to sell you snake oil. All right, but they are financially managed, so we know that about forest. All right, and Cabot, in contrast, a similar company in many ways, but likely not in terms of disclosure. They had the very short annual report, 24 pages total. It's quite apparent that management really doesn't want to talk to analysts very much. So from page 3 of Cabot's annual report, they talk about the theme that they started last year, which was corporate streamlining in both our investment focus and our reporting structure, which says basically we're going to say not that much. All right, and we can look at Cabot's annual report. Here, if you check out how it's laid out, the cover page doesn't say much. Page 2 says nothing, which is the back cover. Then there's a pretty picture of an executive. And finally, on the page that first has words, that's the quote from the slides. They do give you some information very similar to the guidance that we looked at for Cabot recently. And they give you some real rough cut things. That's it. Note on, this would be a tangent real quick, note on the guidance that we talked about the other day. It's not that one. Anyways, I can't find the conference call. Can't find this file. Cabot, in my mind, really is not talking to analysts. That's kind of a good summary of what they do. All right. So finally, here is a tie back to the title of the first slide. The title of the first slide was the conceptual exam question, if you want it. All right, so the option is to arrive at the exam tomorrow half finished. All right, the instructions, come to the exam with one sheet of paper, normal size, front side only, double spaced, typed, R number, top left corner, and respond to this question. Based on Cabot and Forrest, what we know, what is a better disclosure strategy? Is it full public disclosure, both required and strategic disclosure? That seems to be like forest oil. Or is full required public disclosure only a good strategy? So say what GAP tells you you have to say and keep the extra discussion to a minimum. That would be sort of like Cabot. The tip that I will give you is think before you write. The grading rubric is 40% of the grade on this one question will be based on professional communication, and 60% will be the thoughtfulness, depth, and accuracy of the content you provide. All right, so let's do something else. Let's think about these companies and how they've been performing. Right, this might help in terms of framing your response to the disclosure strategy. All right, so on this line we have 3 different items. This is from Google Finance. All right, so the blue line is Cabot. All right, so here they are, beginning of 2009, chugging along, kind of similar to the S&P 500 and the forest oil, which is the red line. There's this little period where forest was doing a little better than Cabot, but then during 2011, Cabot goes up, and then forest, which is this red line, they go down, and it's pretty big. All right. Here's the S&P 500 by comparison, this orange line. Let's get rid of that. That's kind of annoying. Can't get rid of the arrow. Alright, forget that. Alright, so whatever caused that performance difference where it appears that in recent times Cabot is dominating Forest. Oddly, Cabot is the low disclosure by comparison company. They've been following that strategy since 2009. What's a better strategy? Not to bias you, but when you look at the results, it's probably easier to pick one company over the other. Not saying that you have to. Anyways, respond to that. The other option is don't arrive half finished. All right, so just show up to the exam without a pre-completed response. I will give a slightly more fleshed out version of the question that I just presented, along with the second question on the exam, which we have talked about based on the Nichols book and the information sheet. Again, be sure to check Blackboard for the information sheet by noon. Would like to finalize the information sheet. Let's make that 3 o'clock. We'll finalize the information sheet. Otherwise, keep in mind that the exam's tomorrow. It's a big grade day. Sleep well, eat well, and let's see if I can turn off Camtasia.